The marginal product of an input is the change in quantity divided by the change in employment of the input when employment of all other inputs is constant. It measures how much output increases when the firm employs another or an additional unit of the input. So here we have a table, and L represents the amount of labor employed by a company, or the number of workers. Q is output, and MPL is the marginal product of L, or the marginal product of workers, the marginal product of labor. MPL is calculated as the change in Q divided by change in L when all the other inputs are being held constant. So let's calculate marginal product when L goes from 3 to 4. The change in Q is 2. Output goes up by 2 when it goes from 18 to 20. And the change in L is 1. Let's make that a little cleaner here. Change in L is 1. So the marginal product is simply 2 divided by 1, or 2. This means that output increases by 2 when L increases from 3 to 4, and that output decreases by 2 when L decreases from 4 to 3. Average product is not the same as marginal product. Average product of an input is the amount of output produced divided by the employment of the input. Average product measures how much each unit of the input produces. Here's the table again. We have 2 rows. We know the marginal product of when L goes from 3 to 4 is 2. Let's find average product for each row. The average product of L is simply the amount of output produced divided by the amount of L employed. So we're going to have 18 divided by 3, which is equal to 6. We're going to have 20 divided by 4, which is 5. Marginal product diminishes when the marginal product decreases as the firm increases the employment of an input. So let's let the number of workers here, this will equal L. Marginal product diminishes when an increase in L makes the marginal product of L go down. I've calculated marginal product as L goes from 0 up to 2. Well, their marginal product increases. It goes 10 to 15. But as output goes from 2 down to 4, marginal product gets lower. It goes from 15 to 13 to 8. So we'd say here that marginal product begins to diminish when the number of workers goes from 2 to 3. Now, marginal product of a resource eventually decreases. If you keep adding more and more of one input and hold all of the inputs constant, at some point, the marginal product of the input that you're changing is going to get smaller and smaller. Why? Because the average amount of other resources available to the variable input is going to decrease. Let's let L be the variable input. Let's suppose that K is the fixed input. It represents all other inputs that are constant. Well, as you hire more and more L, that's going to cause the ratio of K to L to go down. It's got to happen. The numerator is constant, and the denominator getting bigger and bigger. So we'll kind of walk through an example. 2 workers may be more than twice as productive as 1 because they can work together and specialize. However, as the firm employs more and more workers, each of them will have less access to equipment and floor space. The ratio of equipment and floor space to workers is going to get lower and lower. As workers have less access to equipment and floor space, the marginal product of each worker will eventually diminish. Since the extra worker is not able to access all the other inputs it needs, it contributes a smaller increase in output than the previous worker.